This is the Outliers Edge podcast, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity by taking them to the edge of their comfort zone so that they can lead us to the edge of what's next. I'm your host, Niiamah Ashong. Let's do this. Hello there. Niiamah Ashong here. And I'm really excited because today we get a chance to have an important and meaningful conversation with Cordelia Gaffar, the joy monger. And Cordelia, it's a pleasure to be in this conversation with you here today. We've had a chance to connect and discuss collaboration in the past, and it's really great to just be in a space to both explore that and platform and champion one another throughout this journey. So just know that I'm deeply grateful, deeply honored to be in this conversation with you. I'm deeply honored to be not just in this conversation, but to be in conversation with you. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, that feels so good. And I totally resonate with that. I love that your whole purpose is surrounding joy. And I'm the world's best joy monger.
So we're going to be able to play a lot with this here. And I want to, I wanted to start off here. I'm going to ask, well, let me ask you this here. I know you're the world's best joy monger. Let me speak you into the room. Let me share with you who I see you as. And this is cool.
Okay.
All right. So Cordelia, I said I was grateful for you, and I'm really honored. And the reason for this is that this is who you've been to me. You've been someone who shows up not just in the world from a visibility standpoint, but you show up in a place of complete alignment, of a desire for and a testament to being in alignment, being congruent, being embodied in the things that you do. You're someone who is not afraid to speak what needs to be said in the moment, and is able to traverse and a world of both what feels deeply spiritual as well as deeply tangible and practical. When I see you out in the world, and when I get a chance to be with you here, the feeling that I experience is one of completeness and wholeness. And I'll let that right now, that's who you are to me. That's how I experience you out in the world. Now, I'm gonna let that be. I love to give you some space here. I tend to meet people, I tend to not look at some of the external things that they're doing, so I miss it oftentimes. I want to give you a chance to speak yourself into this from here, to share a little bit about you both. Just a little bit about you. If someone was going to see you on the street, what might they know about you?
Yeah. I'm giving myself a moment to receive what you said. And also, to answer your question, my perception of what people see of me, it vacillates, right? Most of the time, I would say that they see a very genuine, present mother, who loves her children very deeply, and an extension of my mothering is the foundation of my work. Without nurturing who I am and who I'm being, I can't nurture anyone else. And so in support of myself, I emanate and radiate from a place of self-nurturing and self-compassion, and allow myself to transcend experiences that I call character building, so that I can operate from a baseline of joy.
There's this element when you said it like that I call character building. I'm like, oh, I feel like if we get a chance to explore that here today, I'm like, um, there's something in there when you said that had it felt like it felt like there was a lot more behind that when that came out, and the element of transcending those experiences to then create joy or to then still be in joy is also something that really like stands out for me. I remember Cordelia the first time, and we'll talk about joy in a bit, but like I remember the first time I was having a conversation with someone and I shared with them. I don't know if I told you this. I think I might have. But like, I just became a black man 5 years ago. Like, yeah, I've always been like, it's the truth. I've always been this person in this, like, I've looked this way. I've always been, but I grew up, my parents sat me down when I was like 7 or 8, and they're like, hey, just so you know, like, you're going to see people on the street, you're going to see people on TV. Those are Black Americans. You are African. Like their history was taken from them, you know, and was stolen from them, and like you have like yours goes in is rooted in a different way. I remember being in a space where I was like I had to try and navigate like what that meant for me, you know.
Mm.
And so when you bring in, I remember being in a conversation with someone about maybe about 4 years ago, and I shared with her uh, like that I was angry. I shared with her that I was angry and that I was disappointed. If I'm going to be real, I was disappointed with like the people around me that I felt like had all the opportunities, went to the right schools, had the right resources, had the systems behind their back. Like there's so many things that were just working for them. I was like, I'm not mad. I'm not even envious. I'm just like, with all of that, like, is this all that you're doing? It just feels like it's a much smaller game that's being played than what could be. And she said to me, and this is what linked in so strongly for me. She said to me, I had no idea, Niiamah. I only experienced you in your joy and your happiness and your like exuberance and energy. You know, my smile is very contagious. Right. It's like I always see that. And it blows my mind that it's coming from a place of like being angry, being disappointed. And rather than like lashing out or anything like that, you choose to address that through joy. You choose to address that through being with people and such. So when I hear you say that you're like, you transcend it into joy, there's just a depth in which in which that calls out of me here.
Yeah, that's totally what I'm saying. Like this is my expression of rage. I created the Free to Be show out of rage. I wanted to have conversations about topics I want to talk about with people I want to talk about those topics with, you know? So outwardly, I'm the host of two podcasts, right? So there's the Free to Be show, which is all about me questioning whether or not I'm actually free in my thought and my mind, or am I a prisoner to my own thoughts? And then there's the Unlearning Labels, where I'm in conversation and in collaboration with two other people about what are we going to do about this? Like we all have got these categories that we drop stuff in and we drop people in, and like, is that a thing? Should it be a thing? Like, like in the professional world, do we need labels, And all coming from the possibility that we don't have to confine ourselves to either freedom or labels, Yeah.
Yeah, I do. There's an element as you say this year around that I get really curious about the element of like actively being out there in the exploration of it. I get the sense of just pure emergence in both of these shows here. It's like what needs to emerge here. One, questioning whether I am like, are my thoughts really free? Let's really look at this and say like, and if I'm getting this here, is it along the lines of like, this is what I think, but is this actually like, am I thinking it because I think it, or is it because this is what has been conditioned in me? And let's challenge that. Let's at least
Yeah.
take a look at some of the ways that live in life here. Let me check in with you on that. Is that in alignment with the premise? Yeah,
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 it's completely accurate.
yeah. And then in unlearning labels, like you're given space to also be in an emergent space of like, so what do we do with this here? Like if we're gonna like, and Cordelia, that really strikes me. That really strikes me because I think, you know, here on Outliers Edge, we're like championing leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity. And most of the time that I experience it, even myself, like in this moment, I can feel myself like wanting to converge towards something, wanted to say, here goes what the answer is. Although I know for myself that like my type of leadership is emergent leadership. It's like what's in the room, what needs to come out. It leads. There's a bit of messiness that's in there, um, because we're in search of what is unknown, and we're challenging what is known.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you say this here, I can feel like my entire body just like both energizing and relaxing and like simultaneously. Right. I think that's why you see like there's a movement that's taking place inside
Yeah.
here of like, oh, this might like what a fun way to explore the emergence and it feels like your process of exploration. You're like, let's put this out in the world and engage in this as a conversation.
Yep. Yeah. And on a deeper level, you know, like I'm not like a talking head, so I research everything, you know, and I process it also through writing and through poetry, you know. So I've written 8 books, you know, and I'm working on 2 books currently, one a book of poetry and one further research, you know. And so that is what helps me get through periods like this week. Doing that research, doing the inner inquiry, and, you know, fun fact about me. When I was a teenager, I used to hide behind words using poetry. So consistently, I've used poetry to express my rage. And except for I would say the difference between when I was, you know, like 30 years ago, I would write those poems in a way where for accolades, right? I wanted people to say, "Oh, wow, you're so great with alliteration and all these things," right? And now I don't really care how it lands. It's about me releasing and processing what just happened and how not to how I've chosen in the happening, in the experience, to not self-destruct. Going back to what I said earlier about my baseline of joy. I know that I am a joyful being, and I know that my my nervous system like is red alert when it's like, oh, it looks like we're teetering on despair. It looks like we're teetering on stressing out. And, you know, what can we do to not neutralize it, but transmute it? And in that transmutation, benefit from what's happening, from what's present. And so that's the the feel of my poetry now.
So there's an element here that really I'm appreciative in this moment. I realize this happens for me in like real time, like where I'm just like, oh, what I'm hearing some of the tools that you use to like to transmute the rage into joy and to transcend as well. So you there's the open questioning and bringing others along to question with you. You know, there's the deep research that's involved, and then there's the processing through your writing and words, and that and poetry in particular has always been a wonderful tool for you. And as this has been, you know, as you're processing more and more, that is taking shape in a new way. It's just taking shape in a deeper, more like it's just more expressive way. It feels like,
Yeah.
yeah. It's as you're saying this, it's making me think about like, oh, what are ways that like I'm playing with this as well. What are the ways that we transcend that feeling of rage or whatever the feeling is into whatever else we want to get out into the world. And it's making me think about, like, for me, it's conversations. It's like organized. I'm like, we need to talk, just have a space and let's talk. And there's an element here. And I'm like, here it is. I'm recognizing why this feels so familiar and at the same time so enriching at the same time. I feel like it's like there's like a breath of fresh air that's washing through me, and it's the
Mm-hmm.
element of opening up the conversation and almost stating like this is important enough that this doesn't need to just live just in my journal. This is important enough that it doesn't need to just live in my head or behind closed doors with a few people that I'm feeling like safe enough to have the conversation with. This is
Yeah.
important enough that we should be having the conversation in publicly accessible means, to allow it to go forth. Like as I say that, like what if anything resonates with you? I want to check in on that.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you. I'm probably one of a million coaches that will tell you don't journal. Like if it's bubbling in you that much, you need to tell that person. Communication is so key, you know? And not that I'm against journaling, but I feel, and if I'm honest, when I observe myself, when I journal, most of the time is not about it's about me processing. Okay, stay with me.
I'm with
It's
you.
about
I'm with you.
it's about me processing, diluting, and uh, trying to make the way I feel about a situation with someone receivable. Like I want them to I want them to still like me and hear that I'm not crazy about the way they're behaving, you know? And when I observe that, it's probably been about 2.5 years ago. I was like, this is dumb. Like, I'm not six. I'm gonna just say it, you know? And so now I tell people that when in my coaching sessions, I'm like, what I'm hearing is you need to talk to the person that you're writing in your journal about, you know? Now, on the other hand, when I'm journaling about something that's within me about me, yes, journal that. Don't, like give yourself time and space with it before you talk to other people. But if it's fully about somebody else, talk to the person. Just tell them exactly what's on your mind. And don't worry about how it lands because that's the problem now.
There's an element here as you're talking. It's taken me to the questions of like, oh, how did Cordelia become Cordelia? Like I'm meeting you right now. Like you're in a place of like I've transcended. I transcend rage into joy, but you still feel both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And as this goes on, I'm going to bring out. I want to, how do I say it? I think that it's oftentimes we'll meet people and we'll see them in their expression. We'll see them. You have 8 different books. You have 2 different podcasts out there. You're writing poetry. You're like, you use your platform in a very meaningful and intentional way. You have experiences in other places taking place later on this year. So I look at that and I see you now, and I see you in the space of that, and I'm really curious about like who was the Cordelia beforehand? Like you gave me a little glimpse of you. Like I was always writing poetry, but that was for the accolades. That was to be acknowledged. That was to be, you know. I'm curious. I'm curious a bit about like who you were beforehand, but really around like when you think about like the transitionings for you. Uh, I'm curious about like your journey toward being in this space where you're like, oh, actually, we're gonna have this conversation. We're gonna like we're gonna talk. You know, you even mentioned 2.5 years ago, something started to shift. Can you tell me maybe we can start there, and then if we need to, we can go even further. But like 2.5 years ago, like you started making a shift there. Can you tell me a little bit about that journey? What were some of the things that led to some of the shifts there for you?
Yeah, I had just won a podcast host of the year in London
Mhm.
for my Free to Be show. And Unlearning Labels is a creation of 2020. So, no, of 2021, actually. I was like, wait a minute, that's not true. So, anyway, and so I went all the way to London, imagine, right? And I didn't even know that's the award I was up for. I just knew I was going to get an award. And when I got it, I was like, wow, of all the things, because it was the one thing I thought no one listened to, no one cared about. And it was really for me.
Mm.
And it hit me when I came back, like 6 weeks later, I'm having coffee with a friend. And she's like, so how was London? And I was like, blah, blah, blah. It was great. And she was like, congratulations on winning Podcast Host of the Year. And in that moment, when I said thank you to her, is when I actually received the award. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Tell me a little bit more. I'm hearing
So,
what you're saying, but I want to feel it with you. So tell me more.
yeah, so like even though I had physically received the award in London, it was there was a I had a barrier to receiving. And even though previously everything I did was like, I want everyone to think I'm a great mom. I want everyone to think I'm a great wife. I want everyone to think that, I'm doing wonderful things for women empowerment in my business. And I'm a great coach and I'm a great author. I'm a best-selling author. And for all the outward validation I was seeking, I still didn't think I was worthy of it. And when I introspected on why that is, it was about just an accumulation of years of conditioning and not meeting the bar of what that conditioning was. Like you had, in order to be a good mom, you have to do these things, but that's not me. I don't mother like everybody else. And for me, I was homeschooling my kids also at that time, right? So I chose to homeschool them. And for me, it didn't mean that I had to have one community. I had multiple communities. There are 7 days in a week. So 4 days a week, I was with four different groups of people, you know? So like maybe on Monday we'd hang out with Muslim homeschoolers. On Tuesday we'd hang out with like secular, like non-religious affiliated homeschoolers. On another day we'd be with all Black people. On another day we'd be with like all the rainbows, that exist. And for me, although I knew I was enriching the lives and truly educating my children, I still felt the weight of when I went back with the Muslims. Oh, you were hanging out with gay people? When I hung out with the Black people, oh, you were hanging out with white people? All that, all those layers of judgment. And I never spoke up for my, who I was being in all of that. And then I was just like, and even at home, with my husband, having to even convince him after 15 years of homeschooling why it's good for our kids that I'm homeschooling.
Mm.
Like everywhere in my world, I had to prove something to everyone, and I didn't feel like anyone heard me, you know? And at the same time, I was like, you know what? I don't really care, right? But I wasn't saying I don't really care what you think. I
Mm.
don't really care. So in the journal, goes in the journal, go in the research. How can I feel replenished? How can I pour back into me? Because everywhere I go, I'm pouring out and I'm not, nobody's like receiving me, right? Are
Well,
you
that
feeling me?
that last, I am definitely feeling you. I am feeling you on many levels. That last one was really interesting. That you're like, no one's receiving me, and the action, like your hands came inwards. Um, Although the statement felt like it was an outward element. It was almost like I'm trying to outpour this way, and no one's receiving me. Was that really the case? Like that's the one part that felt disconnected for me. Where it's like,
I
yes,
wasn't receiving me either.
yeah, okay. Okay. And from what you're saying here, it's like, look, there was another award, it turned out to be podcast of the year. There's elements of what you're saying. You're like, I wasn't even receiving along the path that like, this was really, really good, like really, really, really good. I just knew I was going to get something. And in, while there was a physical representation of it, it wasn't until you were like sitting down in that conversation where you actually received you.
Yeah.
And am I getting that right? I don't want to be putting words in your mouth, so I want to make sure I'm getting.
Yeah. And I mean, in that moment, I felt all the layers of me that I was hoping for validation from others. I was just like, nope, I'm the only one that needs to really validate me.
It's a really like important transition there to like be in that space of being, because there was a lot of other things that were taking place in your world. I'm thinking about this even as a thing, both from my perspective as well as like the clients that I work with, and externally there was a lot that was going on here, but your own reception of self and the place of being understood, or being received, that really feels like it's incredibly important for you, and like it has like its own like unique space here. I'm like I'm in this space, like, how do I say it? I know what is happening. Cordelia, I just like really identify with a lot of what you're saying. I think that's what's really happening right now. I'm like, um, the element of like not being understood. I don't think it's on this desk, but I was a part of a mastermind, and they channeled out each of our personas. And it was an intense experience for that persona to come out. And at the end of it, they came up with two words for me, and it was misunderstood chameleon. Misunderstood chameleon. And it was bitter, and it was like, and at the same time, I'm like, I feel like I'm actually seen in this space. Like, as much as I didn't want it, it was actually like it was it. Um, and just that the feeling of I'm expressing myself so much. I am deeply committed to my expression. The amount of work that I've done to try and to be in expression, and to still not be heard, to not be understood. For me, that's where it was like. And in this conversation, I'm like, as I'm talking, I'm like, oh, I wonder if being received and understood are in the same realm or not. It might have been unreceived chameleon, in that sense. Um, and I'll be honest, like feeling bitter. There was a bitterness that kept growing, where for me it was, I spend so much time understanding what you all are talking about, and y'all talk about some off the wall stuff. Like it is not mainstream. And yet I'm the one that's not understood. And what came out from some of the work that I started to do was like starting to understand that, like, actually, in my attempt to, oh, this is real happening right here. I don't think I've ever phrased it this way ever for anyone. So let's go here.
Okay.
I think the hidden truth is that all around me, I considered people to be fragile and unable to handle me.
Mm.
I'm like, you would, if I just told you exactly what was on my mind, if you saw like the disappointment that like is carried, if I let that out right now, like it would almost seem like a different person. One.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I don't think you'd be able to handle it. And
Mm-hmm.
my number one fear is being alone. I'm like, and then I will be lonely.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, I was in also like creating the same, creating the loneliness that I was experiencing. Misunderstood chameleon. It's like, I'm with you. You can't hear me, nor can you really see me. It's like both. Wow, just put that together. It's like it's on both elements here. This is an interesting unpacking in real time. But I think
Yeah.
this is what happens when we're with one another.
Yeah.
It's like misunderstood. It's like I'm neither heard nor am I seen, even though
Hmm.
I'm saying things and I am amongst everyone else here. That all blends out. And yeah, what's coming up as you're saying this is just like this realization, and the parts that don't get uttered for me, where it's like most of the time I just don't know if I don't believe in my heart of hearts that I can actually be received, that I can be understood, and that if I did just say what was on my mind, it would break the people around me. Not even because it's like devastating. It's just true, and I can deliver true things in a way that can be received. And there's part of that is may actually be the problem, saying it in a way that can be received, where it's just like, as opposed to just There's
Saying it.
just saying it. There's a difference between being harsh. There's a difference between being callous, and that's not it. But there is a way. There is a way of trying to protect the people. Like it's
Yes.
like I'm going to
Like
protect
my
you.
old poetry. Yeah.
Tell me more. Tell me more about that. Like what's come up with your own country?
So the other thing that I would add to what you just said,
Yeah.
it's like all yes for me,
Mm.
and I didn't feel that it would be valued. The thing that I had to say, the thing that I felt, or me as a whole valued. That's what I would add. And in the new iteration of who I am now, I still I don't hold those things to be true. And at the same time, sometimes I experience those as truth. So, I'm gonna be as delicate as I possibly can because I want to keep it about me. So now that, in these last 2 years, I've now gotten a divorce, and I'm no longer homeschooling because part of the divorce was the the court's ruling that I had to put my kids in public school. Now, I said, I said, yes, I'm willing to do this. And in that willingness, I have been, I was very open with the schools that my kids are in and told them, we're on the same team and everything else. And my experience has been that they don't believe me. They don't value when I say we're on the same team. And I don't know if it's based on their evidence with people who have previously been forced to put their kids in school, who were true homeschoolers. People say one thing and do something else. And but now I'm in a space where I don't feel like I need to prove that I'm congruent. At the end of the day, I'm on your team as long as you're on my child's team. That's the land I live in now. And when I feel like you're not on my child's team, I'm not on your team. So they have evidence of me behaving like that. Okay. And which may give them more proof that, oh, see, she's not on our team. So, which causes more problems, not really for me, mostly for my child. Okay. And that is a problem for me because don't mess with my kids. I mean, it's one thing when people want to be weird with me. I'm like, okay, whatever. But don't F-bomb with my child, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I said that I think I said specifically that this week has been character building. I've been in the misunderstood chameleon realm of I'm talking about these are the things that need to change with the way you're behaving or offering for my child, and then nothing's happening. And I have scientifically proven by getting outside experts, that everything that my mother's intuition has been tried to convey is true. And so now that I have this report to prove every single thing that I've said and everything that they've dismissed, I feel validated, and I feel self-supporting, and I feel like I'm glad that I chose to always speak up, whether or not, I felt like they were even doing the things that I was suggesting. And that is a difference between me now and me then, because like even 10 years ago, for a very brief period of time, I had to put some of my older kids in school just because I had, like my fifth and sixth baby, and it was a lot. And so, and at that time, when I kind of came up against a similar situation with those kids, I just pulled my kids out of school, right? My point in case about I'll journal about it, but I won't really say anything. Now I'm not journaling about it. You're going to hear it. You're going to hear it in all different ways. And I tell them I do the research myself. And when I don't have time, I hire people who are experts that you'll actually read their reports and care what they say, because I'm just a mom, right? And I'm not that mom in the box that you guys like to see, you know? And also because, you know, while I live in a world, and most of my colleagues like you, right? We live in a realm of we're souls having a human experience. That's cute. It's bullshit when you take your kids to school though, because they're humans and they look at me, they see an angry black mother who happens to be a Muslim. And I'm none of those things. I'm simply a mother with a mother's intuition. I've spent the last 17 years of my life to intimately know my kids beyond the molecular structure that we share. You understand what I'm saying? Like
Absolutely.
homeschooling to me, I didn't buy a box curriculum. I understood my kids' learning styles, I understood their personalities, and I created a curriculum for that child. And even though I have six children, I did not teach them the same way. I have six different books for six different ways to teach kids how to read, six different ways to teach people how to do math, to understand history, to understand, that's me. And so, but all they see is, an angry black woman. And yes, I'm extremely disappointed in you not seeing my child as an individual, seeing her or seeing that person as just another, whatever age group child, right? She's not. He's not. My child is an individual, and you will see them as an individual. And that's what I'm about. And what makes it even more character building, remember, when we were married, there was a disagreement on education. Do you think that we've patched that all up now that we're divorced? So that's great because, then his presentation is more, amenable. That's what they like to see parents. He's, very, how can I support you? What can I do? And oh, we like the dad. The dad knows how to respect, what we're doing here. And the mom, that mom, and so that's the extra character building element that I'm dealing with. And then of course behind the scenes there's all that colorfulness between the mom and the dad, which I refuse to get into. And I'm grateful for all of it, and it's just helped me to be more in my joy, more in my understanding of who I am, and a better coach, I feel. And so, you were talking about the experiences, when I offer, it's also given me a lot of clarity of how I want to work with people, one-on-one coaching and like replenish me experiences, right? Out in the field, outside of your comfort zone. We're going to Hawaii. We're going to get in the elements. And I'm not even kidding, because when I went to Hawaii last month, my molecular structure changed. It really did. Like before Hawaii, right now, this week, I would have gone into self-destruct mode so many times. Now, like, there is no default self-destruct mode setting. There is only, and how do we return to joy? How do we stay in joy? How do we convey clearly, to who we're speaking? And who are we speaking to? And what is the truth of collaboration here? Are we actually working together? Are we on the same team? Is there a team? And in discovering that sometimes there is no team, and the reason why people perceive you as a liar is because they're incongruent, and your congruence is offensive to them.
Yeah.
It makes them feel ashamed that they're so incongruent. During the time that I was in the office with two of the school administrators, they lied to me, like in my face, and they just kept talking. which tells me that is their way of being. That's their default setting. They're incongruent, and they, what they call, have stall tactics to get kids, to manipulate kids to conform to conditioning. And I've spent my children's entire lives to help them not to conform to conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying now?
Well, yeah. So there's two things here. There's many things. Two is not enough. Firstly, thank you, Cordelia, for sharing here and bringing this here. Like, I'm, whether or not I understand words wise, which I do, my heart understands this tremendously. As you are speaking, I'm both hearing your, like, what you're saying and receiving what you're saying, and also like creating, like, needing to create space inside me to also experience what I'm experiencing here. I don't rage, anger, that kind of stuff. No one gets to see that because I don't get to see it. I just, it just doesn't occur. You know, and as you're speaking, the more and more comes in here where I'm like, the amount of work that is necessary that people are asking you to do, but in order to convey and communicate something that you're like, this has been years in the making. Trust me, like, I put in the work. I've done the research. I have individual plans for each individual person. Like, you're already doing so much, and there's a part of me that just realistically I can feel myself like being like, no, I'm supposed to host, like I'm not supposed to feel and such, like I need to guide the conversation somewhere, and I'm like, screw it, I'm feeling it right now. Um I know that we're like, we end up back in the joy, but I also just want to just be like, yeah, that, like I'm feeling you on that. I'm feeling the, let me try and see what I am feeling, not what you are feeling. Like, what I am feeling. What I am feeling is like, yeah, I'm feeling my experience of you as someone who's like, who deeply knows love, who knows, like, nurturing down to the individual seed, but can still raise a garden. And I think that, like, that's something different. It's not like, oh, we're just watering the plants. Like, this one in particular needs this one needs this one needs this amount of sunlight. And I'm just feeling from here, like, your capacity to be with both one and many on such deep levels. Like, that is something that I feel, and your commitment to that love, your commitment to the people around you, your commitment as a mother, and the nurturing spirit of mother, and how that comes out into life through you. So I'm really, like, I'm picking up hard on that. And I think that is part of what is so frustrating to me when I hear this, where I'm like, this is not someone who's absent at all. You have a very willing participant who is expressing to you, let us be on the same team on behalf of my child. Like, we both want what's in the best interest of my child here. So let us play the game that way. And I think there's an element that is running through me of, it is easy. You talked about, like, being in the coaching world, and like, let's all elevate our consciousness, and here we are, and like, there's a certain tone of voice that goes along with it. um and it's like, and it's I think the frustration is that it is not easy to show up in a place where you've chosen to transcend the moment and still bring all of your fire, but redirect that fire into a constructive manner. And as that takes place, I think that I can feel within me the level of, like, do they understand how much work is involved to, like, to simply do something that you have known intuitively. It's that easy for you, right? It's that easy for you now. You've put in the work over years to know it on that level. But then to do the additional research, so on and so forth. It's just like, that's why I'm like, huh. And honestly, like in my mind, I'm like, fine, 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 fine. You want me to go and do the research? You want me to prove what I already know to be true? I will spend my time. I will spend my money. We will get this done. Do you have any other excuses that are going to get in the way of what we could have handled weeks ago? And so, like, do I understand? I have not lived your life, so no, not fully. Do I feel? Do I relate? I feel more than I've felt in a very long time around this. My brain is not on right now. In fact, every time it comes on, I'm like, turn off for a bit and just be here in this moment. Be in the practice of allowing the expression out and to feel that there. So, so this year, I've always known you to be a tremendous person, and I think that what I'm grateful in this moment because I've been really using the word tremendosity. The tremendosity of you is it's really permeating through in ways in just many different textures and cultures around it. So that's what I'm receiving here. And actually, and this is another place of gratitude. I'm also receiving myself in a way like this is like people don't get this, don't get this, you know. And I think that's why I'm like I can go back to the joy. Most people will see the joy here, and there's a ton of energy. There's a lot of energy. Like I see you. Like it's like yeah. There's just a ton of energy that's there. Um, and I what I want to say is to you in this moment, I want to make the commitment to learn to receive you. Right. I'm not going to pretend that I do off the bat 100%. It feels good. I feel like I'm understanding you. You know, I'm hearing you like it feels it there, and I'm like this person in front of me is simply asking to be received, and not the way that I would receive her, but in the way that like she wants to be received. And yeah, just between us here, like I'm making that commitment to learn what real reception for you feels like and to be someone in your life that will receive you in that way. Are you open to that? Are you good with that?
I am.
Yeah. Yeah. That feels real. That feels there's an immense wave of gratitude. It's interesting. I'm like, I'm so grateful that you've been able to help me feel annoyed, and frustrated. Because access to that doesn't often doesn't isn't it isn't my strongest, my most open channel, you know.
Hmm.
Um, so I put it that way here because I can feel in our conversations where it's like like do you understand me, like that's literally the last thing that you asked me, I'm with you, Cordelia, we're on this here, we're on this journey. I don't have to say anything. I'm gonna just like let it come in, you know. And then our attention goes to like, well, was I really understood in that element? And I recognize for myself, I'm like, I think rather than giving you lip service, what I can give you is commitment, and the commitment to sharing what I got from it, what the experience was that I got from it, as well as my commitment to being on the journey to make sure that I can like understand you as you wish to be understood. Doesn't mean I need to agree. I feel like I understand, and we're gonna go here, but that feels like it's in alignment with me in this current moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That feels good to me. This is the thing. People feel like they, have to understand each other. Um, and they don't. They just have to be committed. They just have to be their word. And that's what doesn't exist, broadly in the world. And to the extent that it doesn't exist is what's shocking, you know? Um, I guess we talk about how, what is it? In the military, they like to keep organized chaos. It's not just the military, it's like the entire world is organized chaos. Because as long as there is a divide and conquer happening, then someone can control all of us. But as long as we are not dividing ourselves with labels or judgments or shame or whatever we choose to divide ourselves, then no one who's not us can't run the show. Heaven forbid we try to empower ourselves. For all the empowerment movements, there's no empowerment happening. And the amount of the people who are empowered, like I said before, this was something that also almost took me out of coaching like 3 years ago. I was like, all these people are coaches. They don't even have kids. Some of them not even married. Like, I felt like, how dare you? You have the audacity to try and coach someone on what? You're not even fully living yourself. And so this is what I love about Steve Hardison, because he is congruent and he is commitment. He has been married to his wife for 44 years, and one of the things he encourages in his coaching is be in a relationship. I can think of someone that I know personally who recently started coaching with him, who was single for several years. And the first thing that person did when they started coaching with him was they got in a relationship, and they're committed to creating that relationship every single day. And I think it's a beautiful thing because it's through having an intimate relationship that you get the opportunity to see yourself. You get to This is why I'm grateful for my marriage, because if it weren't for my marriage, I wouldn't be sitting here and talking to you right now. I would have never become a coach. Every time he challenged me, that, you could do this better, you could do that better. I received it as, you know what? Maybe I can do it better. Let me find out about that. And I researched and I read and I practiced, and so you being in a relationship, being committed to a relationship helps you to want to be a better person. Now, at some point, there becomes a misalignment, and then that relationship ends. So some relationships are for season, and some are for a lifetime. It appears that's the way it is for Steve Hardison, and so I'm bringing that up to say that I no longer hold judgments against my colleagues, my fellow coaches. I only operate now as an observer of myself, and not from a lens of self-destruct, but from a lens of who I know that I truly am being and have always been. I'm the person who loves to do cartwheels, and I do cartwheels when I need to shift my energy. So, and reconnect with my joy. So, yeah.
So Cordelia, like, you're making me think of a call I was on the other day where I just started like dancing because I was like, and everyone else was bobbing their head, but I was like, no, I need to move to reconnect here. I need to move. So there's you brought in something here, and I think it's good for us to close this conversation and complete this conversation space for today, even though we just opened up a whole new conversation that we can go down. We're past the top of the hour, so I want to make sure like that's important for me. I'm here, but I did want to make sure in case there's something you had to like run to, we can just give space for that. I truly appreciate you. I look forward to our ongoing conversations, and I enjoy like having the space to like to continue to explore and to continue to feel into all this here. I acknowledge you for the work that you've done to transcend, to really and to be in that transcendence. I remember talking to you. I talked to you right before you went to Hawaii for the first time, and then to hear how it changed you so much on a molecular level, not just the place but the experience there, and to know that now you're creating other experiences through Replenish Me to bring people out to there. And there's one other place that you're taking them that you're going to. It's Hawaii and
St. Martin. So Hawaii in June and St. Martin in August. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and what I get about that and what I get about you is like, I'm imagining each of those individual people coming in as a collective group for the experience, but like you being in such a nurturing state where it's like, I know what each person needs. And this is an experience that individuals are having collectively, and things are both collectively driven, but every person there is going to get exactly what they need in the way that they need it. And that's just something that just feels like, I was going to say it comes natural to you, but I think what it is that like you're willing to do the work, and like you're inclined to do it, and you're willing to do that work. And I get excited for that. If anyone's interested in following you, learning more about what you're doing, if they're interested in Replenish Me or any of the other work that you do here, what's the best way for them to stay on a journey with you?
Yeah. I'm super interactive and active on Instagram. And separately from that, I am also on Facebook and LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
And I have a website too, so which is my name. In all cases, just Google search Cordelia Gaffar and like it's all there.
It's all there. Awesome. Well, Cordelia, thank you for this time here. If there's one last sentence or phrase that you would use to kind of complete us here in this space here, what would that be?
Every experience is to the elevation of your soul.
Ready to play at your edge? Come join us inside of the Outliers Edge multiverse, where you have the opportunity to come for 14 days and play in the sandbox of your unique leadership style and take everything about you to its next edge. Go to outliersedge.com/OE guest pass in order to receive your 2-week gift.